Dr. Lee Hanna stepped off the transport shuttle at Proxima Station, her boots clicking against the metal floor. The massive space station buzzed with activity as hundreds of different alien species moved through the corridors. She had been here before, but the sight of towering insectoid traders and floating gas cloud beings never stopped amazing her. Hanna was tired. Really tired. She had spent the last 8 months traveling between distant planets, collecting samples of extinct Earth plants from old human colonies. Her small research ship was packed with rare seeds and plant specimens that might help restore Earth's dying ecosystems. All she wanted now was to renew her research permits and get back to work. The administrative hub sat in the center of the station, a gleaming building that looked like a crystal cathedral. Inside, long lines of beings waited at various counters. Hanna found the section marked Human Affairs and joined the shortest queue. Only 3 people ahead of her. Not bad for a busy day. The Vorthak clerk behind the counter was typical of his species, tall and thin like a walking stick, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow under the artificial lights. His large black eyes never blinked as he processed paperwork, with forearms moving in perfect coordination. These beings were known throughout the galaxy for their efficiency and attention to detail. "Next," the Vorthak called in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Hanna approached the counter and placed her identification card on the scanner. "I need to renew my xenobotanical research permits," she said clearly. "Standard 5-year extension, the key." Clark's translator device, a small cube floating beside his head, flickered with blue light. "Ah yes, Dr. Lee Hanna, human specimen collector. We have your records here." His fingers danced across a holographic interface that appeared in the air. Something about the way he said specimen collector made Hanna pause, but she brushed off the feeling. Translation technology wasn't perfect, especially between human languages and alien ones. Sometimes words got mixed up. "Your previous permits show excellent compliance," the Vorthak continued. "Genetic material collection rates are impressive. The Council has noted your contribution potential." Hanna frowned. "I collect plant samples, not genetic material. Just seeds and specimens for botanical research." The translator cube flickered again. "Of course, botanical genetic specimens, very valuable for reproduction programs." The clerk pulled up several holographic documents. "We have prepared the standard continuation contract, same terms, expanded territory access." The paperwork floated in front of Hanna, written in both alien script and what appeared to be English. But the English looked strange, like it had been translated back and forth several times. Words like sample collection appeared as genetic. Contribution and research territory showed up as breeding grounds. Hanna rubbed her eyes. The long journey had left her exhausted, and the strange lighting in the station was giving her a headache. The document seemed standard enough. Permissions to access restricted systems, authorization to collect specimens, transport clearances. She had signed similar papers dozens of times before. "Is this the same as my previous permits?" she asked. "Enhanced. Subversion. Better access, more systems available, increased support from member species." The Vorthak's large eyes reflected the holographic text. "Very beneficial for your genetic contribution work." There was that phrase again. Hanna assumed it was just another translation glitch. Alien technology was advanced, but their understanding of human language often created odd word choices. She had learned to ignore these small mistakes over the years. The signing process required her to place her palm on a bioscanner while speaking her name aloud. Standard security procedure. The holographic documents glowed briefly, then disappeared. "Congratulations, Dr. Lee Hanna. Your breeding assignment notification will arrive within 1 standard day. The Reproduction Council is very pleased with your participation." Hanna's blood went cold. "My what assignment?" Hanna woke up in her small quarters aboard the station to the sound of her communication device beeping insistently. She rolled over and checked the time. Only 6 hours since she had signed those papers. Her head still pounded from exhaustion, but the urgent tone of the message alerts made her sit up quickly. The first message came from the Galactic Administrative Office. Official seal. High priority, marked as legally binding. Hanna's hands shook slightly as she opened it. "Congratulations on your acceptance into the Species Recovery Program. Your genetic profile has been analyzed and approved for immediate breeding. Assignments. Report to Medical Bay 7 within 24 hours for compatibility testing. Hannah read the message 3 times, certain she was still dreaming. This had to be some kind of mistake. She was a plant scientist, not a whatever this was supposed to be. The second message was longer, filled with official language that made her stomach drop with each sentence. According to galactic census data, humanity was now classified as critically endangered species, priority, recovery status. The report cited Earth's environmental collapse, scattered colony failures, and declining human populations across known space. Her personal file appeared on screen, and Hannah barely recognized the description. Subject: Lee Hannah. Genetic classification: premium breeding stock. Notable traits: high intelligence markers, disease resistance, adaptive genetic sequences. Recommended for immediate reproductive assignment to ensure species continuation. The words felt like ice water in her veins. How had she gone from collecting plant samples to being labeled as breeding stock? She scrolled through more documents, each one making the situation worse. A detailed genetic analysis showed her DNA had been on file for years. Every time she had visited a medical facility, undergone health screenings, or provided samples for routine checkups, the information had been stored in galactic databases. Someone had been building a profile of her genetic makeup without her knowledge. The classification criteria were coldly clinical. Humans with higher education, no serious genetic disorders, and proven adaptability to different environments were considered premium stock. Hannah's years of traveling between planets, her advanced degrees, and her clean medical history had apparently made her a perfect candidate. But the worst part was the legal language at the bottom of every document. The contract she had signed was not just binding, it was galactic law. 3 different alien civilizations had already filed claims on her genetic material. The paperwork showed payment receipts, dowry transfers, and breeding schedule proposals. Hannah jumped up and started pacing her small room. This was insane. She was a human being, not some kind of prize animal to be traded between species. There had to be a way out of this nightmare. She tried calling the administrative office, but the automated system kept transferring her to different departments. Breeding program inquiries, species recovery services, genetic contract enforcement. Each department told her to contact a different office. Finally, she reached a live representative, another Vorthak clerk, who spoke in the same emotionless tone as the one from yesterday. "I need to cancel this contract immediately," Hannah said. "There's been a terrible mistake." "No cancellations possible once genetic contribution contracts are finalized," the clerk replied. "Your breeding assignment is legally binding across 3 galactic sectors. Violation would result in criminal charges and forced compliance." "But I never agreed to any breeding program. I'm a scientist." Records show voluntary signature and bioauthentication yesterday at 1400 hours station time. Contract is valid and enforced by galactic species protection laws. Hannah felt the room spinning around her. She had walked into that office to renew simple research permits and somehow signed away her freedom to 3 alien species she had never even met. Hannah sat in the cramped waiting room of legal aid services, surrounded by beings she couldn't identify. A creature that looked like a walking tree was arguing with a floating jellyfish about mining rights. The air smelled like sulfur and ozone, making her feel sick to her stomach. After 3 hours of waiting, her name was finally called. The lawyer assigned to her case was a Mortillion, a slug-like being about 4 feet tall with glistening purple skin and 6 eyes arranged around his head. He introduced himself as Crix and gestured for her to sit across from his desk. "So, Doctor." "Lee Hannah," Crix said, his voice bubbling like he was speaking through thick liquid. "So you want to break a genetic contribution contract? This is very unusual." Hannah leaned forward desperately. "It was all a mistake. I never meant to sign up for any breeding program. I just wanted to renew my research permits." Crix pulled up her file on a holographic display. His 6 eyes moved independently, scanning different parts of the document at once. "The signature verification is perfect, Bioauthentication confirmed. Translation logs show all documents were processed through standard protocols. But the translation was wrong, Hana insisted. They made it sound like routine paperwork. Translation accuracy is not grounds for contract nullification, Crix replied matter-of-factly. The Galactic Legal Code places responsibility on the signatory to understand what they are agreeing to. Hana felt her hope crashing down. There has to be something we can do, some kind of appeal process. Crix's eyes focused on her with what might have been sympathy. Dr. Hana, I must explain the situation you are in. 3 major galactic powers have already paid substantial dowries for breeding rights with you. He pulled up 3 separate files. The crystalline hegemony paid 50,000 credits and provided rare mineral samples. The Turian clans offered military technology worth 75,000 credits. The collective contributed advanced processing equipment valued at 100,000 credits. The numbers hit Hana like physical blows. They bought me? Technically, they purchased genetic contribution rights, Crix corrected. But yes, substantial investments have been made. Cancelling the contract would require repaying all dowries plus penalty fees. The total would be approximately 500,000 credits. Hana laughed bitterly. I don't have that kind of money. I'm a researcher, not a corporation. This brings us to the larger problem, Crix continued. Even if you could pay, the contract cannot be nullified without consent from all 3 parties, and they have already begun making preparations. Over the next week, Hana attended 4 different appeal hearings. Each one felt like being put on trial, except she wasn't accused of a crime. She was treated like valuable property. The first tribunal consisted of 3 judges from different species. They reviewed her case for exactly 12 minutes before dismissing her appeal. The humans signed voluntarily, the head judge declared. The contract serves the greater good of species preservation. The second hearing was worse. A panel of bureaucrats discussed her genetic profile like she wasn't even in the room. Look at these intelligence markers, one said excitedly, and the disease resistance genes. Remarkable. This specimen could produce offspring with incredible survival traits. I'm not a specimen, Hana shouted. I'm a person. The bureaucrats looked at her with confusion, as if her objection made no sense. To them, she wasn't Dr. Lee Hana, accomplished scientist and human being. She was a collection of useful genes that needed to be preserved and utilized. The third tribunal was led by an artificial intelligence that spoke in mathematical formulas. It calculated breeding success probabilities and genetic diversity outcomes while completely ignoring Hana's pleas for freedom. The final appeal took place before a council of 12 different species. Hana thought this might be her best chance. Surely someone would understand her situation. Instead, they spent 2 hours debating which alien civilization had the strongest claim to her first offspring. The hegemony argued that their scientific approach would produce the most intelligent children. The Turians claimed their military breeding program would create stronger humans. The collective insisted their consciousness-sharing methods would evolve humanity beyond current limitations. Hana realized with growing horror that none of them saw her as a person making choices about her own life. To every single one of these tribunals, she was just genetic material that needed to be properly managed for the good of her species. The meeting room felt like stepping into a nightmare. Hana had been escorted by 2 security guards to what they called a compatibility assessment session. The sterile white walls and bright lights made everything feel clinical and cold, like a medical examination rather than a social gathering. 3 beings waited for her around a circular table, each more alien than anything she had imagined in her worst dreams about this situation. The first one looked like a living crystal formation. Veltar stood about 7 feet tall, his body made of translucent blue-green minerals that caught and reflected the room's light in dazzling patterns. When he moved, tiny chimes seemed to ring from inside his crystalline structure. His voice sounded like wind blowing through glass tubes. Fascinating, Veltar said, studying Hana like she was a specimen under a microscope. The genetic reports did not fully capture the complexity of human neural architecture. I can see why your species developed such remarkable problem-solving abilities. Hana shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I'm Dr. Lee Hana. I'm a botanist, not a test subject. Veltar tilted his crystal head, light refracting through his features in confusion. Of course you are a test subject. That is why we are here. Your reproductive contribution will help my people overcome our creativity limitations. We have perfect logic, but lack innovation. Human unpredictability is exactly what our offspring need. The second being made Hana's skin crawl just by looking at him. Commander Thos belonged to a species that looked like a cross between a lizard and an armored tank. His dark green scales were covered in battle scars, and his yellow eyes held the cold calculation of a predator. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. The human appears physically weak, Thos observed, as if Hana couldn't hear him. But intelligence reports show impressive tactical thinking. Her plant research required navigating hostile environments and solving complex survival challenges. These traits will strengthen my clan's warrior bloodline. I'm sitting right here, Hana said, anger building in her chest. How you can talk to me directly instead of about me? Thos looked at her with surprise. You wish to discuss breeding strategy? Excellent. I have prepared detailed combat training regimens for our offspring. They will be trained from birth to be perfect soldiers with human adaptability and Turian strength. The third being was the most disturbing of all, though it initially looked harmless. Node 7 appeared to be a small, pale humanoid about 4 feet tall, with large dark eyes and smooth grey skin. But when it spoke, Hana realized this wasn't one individual. It was a representative of thousands of connected minds. We are pleased to meet the human Hana, Node 7 said, though its mouth barely moved. We have studied your species' individual consciousness with great interest. Humans can think alone, separate from others. This ability fascinates us. That's normal for humans, Hana replied, feeling more confused than angry now. Normal for you, impossible for us, Node 7 explained. We share all thoughts, all experiences, all decisions. But this creates stagnation. We believe breeding with humans will produce offspring capable of independent thought while maintaining our collective connection. It will be a revolutionary evolution. As the three beings began discussing her like she was livestock, Hana realized something terrifying. None of them understood what they were asking of her. They didn't comprehend human emotions, relationships, or the concept of personal choice. Veltar wanted to study her children as experiments in creativity. Thos planned to turn them into weapons. Node 7 saw them as evolutionary stepping stones, but none of them understood that she was a person with feelings, dreams, and the right to decide her own future. What about what I want? Hana asked, interrupting their technical discussion about genetic compatibility. All three beings stopped talking and stared at her with genuine confusion. Want? Veltar's crystalline features shifted. You want to preserve your species naturally. This breeding program serves that purpose efficiently. Your wants are irrelevant to the tactical requirements, Thos added bluntly. Strong offspring require optimal genetic combinations, not emotional preferences. Node 7 tilted its head like a curious child. We do not understand this concept of individual wanting. The collective good determines all decisions. Why would you want something different from what benefits your species? Hana realized she was dealing with three completely alien mindsets that couldn't grasp basic human nature. After that horrifying first meeting, Hana spent 3 sleepless nights in her quarters, desperately trying to figure out how to escape this nightmare. The answer came to her while staring at the alien translation device that had caused this mess in the first place. If faulty translations had gotten her into this situation, maybe she could use the aliens' ignorance about humans to get herself out. The next morning, she requested another meeting with her 3 partners. They gathered in the same sterile room, eager to begin what they called the reproductive process. Before we can proceed, Hana announced with fake confidence, you need to understand something crucial about human breeding biology. All 3 beings leaned forward with interest. Veltar's crystalline body chimed softly as he shifted position. Human reproduction is not like other species, Hana continued, making her voice sound as scientific as possible. We require very specific environmental and psychological conditions for successful breeding. Without these conditions, human females become completely infertile. Commander Thos growled with concern. What conditions? Our medical data shows human reproduction is relatively simple compared to many species. Hannah shook her head gravely. That data is incomplete. Humans evolved on Earth with complex seasonal cycles, specific plant compounds in our environment, and elaborate bonding rituals. Remove these elements, and our reproductive systems shut down as a survival mechanism. This was complete nonsense. But the aliens didn't know that. Their species reproduced through crystal formations, warrior competitions, and hive mind connections. They had no real understanding of human biology beyond basic medical scans. Node 7's large eyes blinked slowly. Explain these requirements in detail. Hannah had prepared for this question. First, humans need exposure to specific earth plants that release hormones essential for fertility. Without lavender, rose petals, and chamomile in our environment, our bodies cannot produce the right chemical signals for reproduction. She pulled up images of earth flowers on her personal device. These plants must be cultivated in soil from our homeworld, watered with rain that has the correct mineral content, and grown under light that matches Earth's sun spectrum exactly. Veltar's crystal form brightened with fascination. Remarkable! Your species evolved such precise environmental dependencies. This explains why human colonies sometimes fail to maintain population growth. Exactly, Hannah said, relieved that her lie was being accepted. But that's just the beginning. Human mating also requires elaborate emotional bonding rituals that can take months or even years to complete properly. Commander Thos looked skeptical. Rituals? What kind of rituals? Hannah started making up traditions on the spot. Humans must first engage in friendship bonding, where we share meals prepared with specific spices and talk about our childhood memories. Then comes the trust-building phase, where we exchange personal artifacts and learn each other's family histories. She warmed to her theme, inventing increasingly complex requirements. After that, we need courtship displays involving music, poetry, and synchronized dancing under starlight. Only when all these bonding stages are complete can human reproduction actually occur. The three aliens were taking detailed notes, treating her words like scientific facts. How long does this process typically require? Node 7 asked. For optimal genetic outcomes? At least 2 years, Hannah said confidently. Rushed human breeding produces weak offspring with shortened lifespans. The most successful human couples spend 3 to 5 years in courtship before reproducing. This bought her precious time, but Hannah wasn't finished. There's one more critical requirement. Humans need to be in contact with others of their species during the bonding process. We're social creatures. Isolation makes us psychologically unstable and reproductively inactive, Veltar chimed thoughtfully. So you require access to other humans. Daily communication is essential, Hannah nodded. I'll need to establish contact with human populations across the galaxy to maintain proper psychological balance. It's a biological necessity. While her three captors began planning how to meet these elaborate fake requirements, Hannah started her real work. Using the communication access they provided for her supposed psychological health, she began reaching out to other humans scattered across space. Her first contact was Dr. Park Min-ho, a human engineer working on a mining station 3 systems away. Through encrypted channels, she discovered he was facing similar pressures from alien governments wanting human workers for dangerous jobs. Then she found Kim So-ra, a trader who had been approached by alien merchants interested in human luck and intuition for gambling ventures, and Lee Jae-sung, a medic whose healing skills had attracted the attention of alien military forces. As days passed, Hannah built a secret network of humans, all facing various forms of exploitation, disguised as cooperation or assistance. While her alien captors worked on cultivating earth plants and studying human courtship behaviors, she was quietly organizing the first pan-galactic human resistance movement. The aliens thought they were preparing optimal breeding conditions. In reality, Hannah was preparing for something much more important: human survival and freedom. 3 weeks into her elaborate deception, Hannah had convinced her alien captors to provide her with a fully equipped botanical laboratory. They believed she needed to cultivate earth plants for her fertility requirements, But she had much bigger plans in mind. The lab sat in a quiet section of Proxima Station, filled with hydroponic growing systems, soil analyzers, and atmospheric controllers. To any observer, it looked like a legitimate research facility where a human scientist was growing flowers and herbs. In reality, it had become the secret headquarters of an interstellar human communication network. Hannah's breakthrough came when she realized that certain Earth plants could be modified to create organic quantum transmitters. Her years of botanical research had taught her how plant cells could be engineered to store and transmit complex information. By combining her legitimate scientific knowledge with some creative modifications, she developed a communication system that looked like harmless gardening. Her first successful contact was with Dr. Yoon Tae-min, a human physicist trapped on a research station in the Vega system. The aliens there had classified him as essential personnel and refused to let him leave, claiming his work on faster-than-light communication was too valuable to lose. "I can't believe someone else is dealing with this," Taemin's voice crackled through the plant-based transmitter. "They treat me like a brilliant pet. I get excellent food and comfortable quarters, but I'm basically a prisoner." "How many other humans are in your sector?" Hannah asked while pretending to examine flower samples. "At least 15 that I know of. Engineers, doctors, teachers. The aliens seem to collect humans with useful skills and then find excuses to keep us." Taemin paused. "What's your situation?" Hannah explained her breeding contract nightmare, and Taemin was quiet for a long moment. "That's horrible, but also brilliant," he finally said. "Your fake requirements are buying time for all of us." Over the following days, Hannah's network grew rapidly. Each human she contacted knew of others in similar situations. Dr. Nam Hye-jin, a medical researcher on Kepler Station, had been pressured into a medical study participation contract that prevented her from leaving. Engineer Cho Dong-wook was stuck in a mining operation where humans were considered good luck charms that brought successful excavations. The most disturbing case was teacher Jung Eun-ji, who had been hired to educate young aliens, but discovered she was actually being studied to understand human learning methods. The alien government wanted to replicate human educational techniques, but wouldn't let her leave until their research was complete. "We're all trapped in different ways," Yoon-ji observed during one of their secret communications. "But the pattern is the same. They see us as valuable resources, not people." Hannah began sharing her deception tactics with the others. Soon, Dr. Nam was claiming that human medical knowledge required spiritual meditation practices that needed months of preparation. Engineer Cho convinced his alien supervisors that human luck only worked when he could communicate regularly with other humans for psychic energy balancing. Teacher Jung was the most creative. She told her captors that human educational methods required her to study the teaching techniques of other human educators across the galaxy. Her research requests gave her legitimate reasons to contact human teachers on dozens of different worlds. Within 2 months, what had started as Hannah's desperate attempt to buy time had become a coordinated information network spanning 3 galactic sectors. Humans everywhere were using similar excuses about biological requirements, cultural needs, and psychological necessities to gain communication access and delay unwanted commitments. The aliens, with their limited understanding of human nature, accepted these explanations without question. After all, every species had unique biological and cultural requirements. It made perfect sense that humans would need complex social connections and specific environmental conditions to function properly. But while the aliens were focused on meeting these supposed requirements, the humans were quietly gathering intelligence. They mapped which alien civilizations were holding humans, what excuses were being used to keep them, and which sectors had the highest concentrations of human populations. Park Min-ho had become their intelligence coordinator, using his engineering access to track human movements across trade routes. Kim So-ra provided information about alien economic interests in human abilities. Lee Jae-sung shared data about which alien medical facilities were studying human biology. Most importantly, they began sharing resources and strategies. When teacher Jung discovered that one of her alien supervisors was susceptible to stories about human emotional complexity, She taught others how to use similar psychological tactics. Hana realized they were creating something unprecedented, the first truly unified human organization since Earth's environmental collapse had scattered their species across the stars. The breakthrough came at 3 in the morning while Hana was reviewing her contract documents for the 100th time. She had been searching desperately for any loophole, any weakness she could exploit. Her eyes were burning from staring at holographic text, but something in the legal language suddenly jumped out at her. Section 47B stated that all parties were mutually obligated to provide optimal conditions for successful genetic contribution outcomes. She had focused so much on her obligations that she had missed the word mutually. Her hands trembling with excitement, Hana dug deeper into the contract's fine print. There it was, buried in subsection after subsection of legal terminology. Her 3 alien partners weren't just entitled to her genetic material, they were legally required to provide anything she deemed necessary for successful reproduction. The contract language was ironclad. All signatory parties must ensure optimal breeding conditions as determined by the contributing species' biological and psychological requirements. Hana realized she had been thinking about this all wrong. She wasn't trapped by this contract. She was empowered by it. The next morning, she called an emergency meeting with Veltar, Commander Thos, and Node 7. They arrived expecting another discussion about flower cultivation or courtship rituals. Instead, they found Hana with a stack of official documents and a confident smile. "I've been studying human reproductive biology more deeply," she announced, "and I've discovered some critical requirements that we overlooked." Veltar's crystalline form chimed with interest. "What additional requirements?" "Genetic diversity," Hana said, letting the words hang in the air. "Human reproduction requires maximum genetic variation to produce healthy offspring. Breeding with just one human female would result in genetic bottlenecking and weak children." Commander Thos leaned forward, his scarred face showing concern. "What does this mean for our breeding program?" Hana pulled up holographic displays showing fake genetic data she had prepared. "For optimal results, I need access to genetic material from at least 10,000 other humans. This means we need to gather scattered human populations from across the galaxy." The 3 aliens exchanged glances. This was not what they had expected. "Furthermore," Hana continued, "humans require specific environmental conditions for long-term reproductive success. We need Earth-like worlds where human communities can thrive naturally. Artificial habitats suppress our fertility hormones." She brought up images of terraforming projects. "My research shows that humans need at least 12 different planetary environments to maintain genetic health. Desert worlds, forest planets, ocean worlds, each environment triggers different genetic expressions in human DNA." Node 7 spoke up, its collective voice uncertain. "Are you requesting the establishment of human colonies?" "I'm not requesting anything," Hana said firmly. "According to our contract, you are legally obligated to provide whatever I deem necessary for a successful reproduction. And successful human reproduction requires thriving human communities across multiple world types." She pulled up the contract language on her display. Section 47B clearly states that all parties must provide optimal conditions. Section 23A defines optimal conditions as those determined by the contributing species. That's me. Commander Thos studied the contract text, his warrior instincts recognizing a tactical reversal when he saw one. "You are using the contract against us." "I'm using the contract exactly as written," Hana corrected. "You wanted optimal breeding conditions for strong human offspring. These are the real requirements." Over the next hour, Hana presented her demands with scientific precision. She needed human populations relocated from dangerous mining operations, research stations, and other forms of disguised captivity. She required terraforming projects to create suitable environments for human communities. She demanded transport ships to gather scattered humans and communication networks to coordinate the massive relocation effort. "This will cost millions of credits," Veltar observed, his crystalline structure flickering with what might have been worry. "The contract obligates you to provide necessary resources regardless of cost," Hana replied. "Unless you want to admit that you can't fulfill your legal obligations, The three aliens found themselves trapped by their own paperwork. They had been so eager to secure human genetic material that they had signed a contract giving Hana enormous power over the terms of engagement. But the real genius of Hana's strategy went beyond just the contract language. Her months of building the human communication network had given her detailed intelligence about where humans were being held across the galaxy. Her demands weren't random. They were specifically designed to free every human her network had identified. "I'll need a list of all human populations in your respective territories," she continued. "For genetic diversity assessment, of course, and I'll require direct communication access to verify their health and genetic compatibility." Within a week, information began flowing in from three major galactic powers: population surveys, location data, and status reports on thousands of humans scattered across hundreds of worlds. Information that would have taken years for the human resistance network to gather was being handed to Hana on official government letterhead. The aliens thought they were conducting breeding research. In reality, they were providing Hana with a complete database of human captivity across 3 sectors of space. 6 months after Hana had turned the contract against her captors, something unexpected began happening. Her 3 alien partners were becoming passionate advocates for human welfare, though for completely selfish reasons. Veltar was the first to fully embrace the project. The crystalline scientist had become obsessed with what he called optimal breeding conditions and threw himself into creating perfect human habitats with the dedication of someone building a masterpiece. The human female Hana requires atmospheric composition of 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, he explained to a council of hegemony leaders, his crystal body chiming with excitement. "But our research shows that slight variations in trace gases can improve human fertility by up to 15%. We must terraform 17 worlds to test different atmospheric combinations." The Hegemony Council looked confused. 17 worlds? For one breeding program? "Not just one program," Veltar corrected, his crystalline features brightening. "Hana has explained that human genetic diversity requires large population samples. We need at least 3,000 breeding pairs to ensure our offspring receive optimal genetic traits. This is a long-term investment in the future of creativity itself." What Veltar didn't realize was that his breeding pairs were actually families Hana had identified through her secret network, humans being held in various forms of captivity across hegemony territory. His enthusiasm for genetic diversity was enabling the largest human rescue operation in galactic history. Commander Thos took a different approach, but proved equally effective. The Turian warrior had become convinced that human communities would produce superior soldiers, and he began lobbying his clan leaders with military precision. "Every successful human colony increases our strategic resources," he argued before the Turian High Command. "Humans adapt to hostile environments better than any species we've encountered. They turn disadvantages into advantages through sheer stubbornness." He pulled up tactical analyses showing human survival rates in dangerous situations. A human engineer named Cho Dong-wook survived 3 cave-ins that would have killed trained Turian miners. A human teacher named Jung Yoon-ji developed educational techniques that improved alien learning efficiency by 300%. "We're not just investing in breeding, we're investing in tactical superiority." The High Command was impressed. Within weeks, Turian military vessels were evacuating humans from dangerous work sites and relocating them to safer worlds where they could develop their tactical potential properly. Thos personally oversaw these operations, believing he was gathering genetic material for future super soldiers. In reality, he was liberating human miners, researchers, and technical workers who had been trapped in exploitative contracts across Turian space. Node 7 proved to be the most enthusiastic advocate of all. The hive mind entity had become fascinated with human individuality and saw the colony project as an evolutionary breakthrough for their entire species. "The human Hana has taught us something remarkable," Node 7 explained to the collective leadership. "Individual consciousness allows for innovations that collective thinking cannot achieve, but we must study this phenomenon properly. The collective listened with their characteristic shared attention as Node 7 continued. We require multiple human communities in different environments to understand how individual thinking adapts to various challenges. Each community will develop unique solutions that we can learn from. Node 7 requested resources to establish human settlements on 12 different world types: Arctic planets, desert worlds, ocean environments, high-gravity worlds, and more. Each settlement would be a research station where the collective could observe human adaptability and innovation. The humans must be comfortable and free to develop naturally, Node 7 insisted. Stressed humans produce limited creative responses. We need them to thrive if we want to understand their individual consciousness properly. The three aliens began competing with each other to provide the best conditions for their human settlements. Veltar's hegemony offered advanced technology and scientific resources. Thos's Turian clans provided military protection and logistical support. Node 7's collective contributed processing power and communication networks. What started as a breeding program had become a massive humanitarian project spanning 3 galactic sectors. Hundreds of worlds were being prepared for human habitation. Transport fleets were gathering scattered human populations. Medical facilities were being established to treat humans who had suffered under poor conditions. The aliens thought they were making strategic investments in their future offspring. They didn't realize they were building the foundation for humanity's return as a major galactic power. Dr. Yun Tai-min, the physicist from the Vega system, was among the first to be relocated to a hegemony research world. "I can't believe this. Here's working," he told Hannah through their secure communication channel. "They're treating us like honored guests instead of prisoners." Engineer Park Min-ho found himself on a Turian industrial world where he was asked to design human-friendly manufacturing systems. "They want me to make the facilities comfortable for other humans they're bringing in," he reported. "I'm basically designing the infrastructure for a human colony, and they're paying me to do it." Teacher Jung Eun-ji was relocated to a collective world where she was given resources to establish the first interspecies educational center. "They want me to teach human learning methods to their young," she explained. "But they're also bringing in human families to create a natural learning environment. It's like they're building a human town without realizing it." The three aliens had become so invested in the success of their breeding program that they were willing to spend enormous resources on human welfare. In their minds, happy and healthy humans would produce superior offspring. They never suspected that they were actually enabling humanity's first coordinated return to galactic prominence since Earth's collapse. 2 years after signing what she thought was a research permit renewal, Hannah stood before the Galactic Council in the most important presentation of her life. The massive chamber held representatives from 47 different species, all floating, sitting, or hovering in their designated sections. The air hummed with translation devices, working in dozens of languages. What had started as a desperate attempt to escape a breeding contract had become something far greater than Hannah had ever imagined. The chamber's central display showed a map of human settlements across 3 galactic sectors, over 200 colonies, research stations, and communities that now housed more than 3 million humans. "Honored council members," Hannah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I appear before you today to present humanity's formal application for full member species status in the Galactic Federation." A ripple of surprise went through the assembled delegates. Humanity had been classified as endangered for decades. The idea of them seeking member status seemed absurd to many present. Hannah activated her presentation display. 2 years ago, humans were scattered, isolated, and declining. Today we represent a thriving interstellar civilization with established colonies, advanced technology sharing agreements, and legal protections under galactic law. The Vorthak representative who had originally processed her paperwork shifted nervously in his seat. He probably remembered the translation errors that had started this whole chain of events. "Our resurgence is built on a foundation of legal contracts with 3 major galactic powers," Hannah continued. "These agreements, initially focused on genetic contribution programs, have evolved into comprehensive partnership treaties that guarantee human rights and territorial sovereignty. She highlighted sections of the breeding contracts on the main display. Under Section 47B of these agreements, humans have been granted autonomous control over colony worlds, resource allocation, and population management. Section 23.A establishes human authority to determine optimal living conditions for our species. What the Council was seeing was unprecedented in galactic history. A species had gone from endangered to politically powerful through legal documentation, rather than military conquest or technological breakthroughs. Veltar rose from the hegemony section, his crystalline form chiming with pride. The crystalline hegemony supports humanity's application. Our partnership with human colonies has increased our scientific advancement by 340%. Human creativity and problem-solving abilities have solved research challenges that stumped our best minds for centuries. Commander Thos stood in the Turian section, his scarred face showing unusual emotion. The Turian clans endorse human membership. Human, tactical thinking and adaptability have revolutionized our military strategies. Their colonies serve as training grounds for our officers to learn innovative approaches to impossible situations. Node 7 spoke from the collective area, its voice carrying the weight of thousands of connected minds. The collective strongly supports human membership. Human individual consciousness has taught us new forms of innovation. Our shared research projects have advanced both species beyond what either could achieve alone. The three most powerful military and economic forces in the galaxy were publicly endorsing humanity's return to prominence. Other council members began to realize they were witnessing a major shift in galactic politics. Hannah moved to her final argument. Humanity requests member status not as supplicants, but as equals. Our colonies produce 15% of rare Earth minerals. In hegemony space, 23% of advanced manufacturing in Turian territory, and 31% of innovative research in collective regions. We are no longer an endangered species requiring protection. We are a vital component of galactic civilization. The statistics were staggering. In just 2 years, human communities had become economically essential to 3 major galactic powers. The breeding contracts had given humans legal protections that allowed them to thrive rather than merely survive. Dr. Yun Taimin, now serving as humanity's scientific representative, stood to address the Council. Human colonies have developed faster-than-light communication improvements, environmental restoration techniques, and resource efficiency methods that benefit all member species. We offer partnership, not dependence. Teacher Jung Eun-ji, representing Human Cultural Affairs, added her voice. Human educational techniques have improved learning outcomes for 17 different species. Our diversity of thought strengthens the entire galactic community. Engineer Park Min-ho, speaking for Human Industrial Contributions, presented data showing how human-designed systems had increased productivity across hundreds of worlds. Human engineering adapts to any environment and improves existing infrastructure in ways other species hadn't considered. The Council debate lasted 6 hours. Some species worried about humanity's rapid rise to prominence. Others questioned whether the breeding contracts were legitimate foundations for political power. But the economic data was undeniable. Humanity had become too valuable to ignore. When the vote was called, the result was overwhelming. 39 species voted in favor of human membership, with only 8 abstentions and no opposition votes. As the chamber erupted in celebration from human supporters, Hannah felt a mixture of triumph and disbelief. She had walked into an administrative office to renew research permits and accidentally become the architect of humanity's greatest political victory since leaving Earth. The girl who had been trapped by faulty translations had used those same bureaucratic systems to rebuild human civilization across the stars. The breeding contract that was supposed to reduce her to genetic material had instead become the legal foundation for humanity's return as a major galactic power. Standing before the cheering council, Hannah realized that sometimes the most powerful revolutions begin with nothing more than refusing to accept what others tell you is impossible.